This government meeting is brought to you by Eastworks and our local cable subscribers.
Okay, I'd like to call this meeting to order. I guess the one change in the agenda, it said Roman numeral 2, acceptance of minutes from November. That should have been December. That one's on me. So it's the December meeting. Has everyone had a chance to look at the minutes from that meeting? Okay, the chair would entertain a motion to accept those minutes.
So moved.
Is that you, Tom?
Yes.
Okay, do we have a second? Louise? Good on you, thank you. Okay, all those in favor, raise a hand within camera range. Okay, thank you. And I don't believe we have any who are opposed, so that's good. Item 3, public speak. We don't have anybody here at this point. Do we have anyone out in video land? Ma'am, could you tell me who you are and what you're speaking about?
Yes, hello. My name is Denise Ducharme. I'm a senior. I reside at Cliffview Manor. I'm the president of the tenants organization here, and I would like to join in on the ad hoc and be part of a committee to help with the erection of the new senior housing, the new senior complex. So I thought I would sit in on the meeting and get to know you folks. I'm also trying to get into the other part of the town stuff with the Council on Aging as well. So I just would like to be represented for the residents over here in the housing communities.
Okay, Denise, let me, I guess this is probably a good time to draw the distinction between the Council on Aging Board and the ad hoc committee. These are two separate groups.
Okay.
And this is a meeting of the board. Next week at this time, there'll be a meeting of the ad hoc building committee.
Okay, so I was a little confused. Yeah, I guess with the
Sure.
change on the in the local flyer.
Yep. Yeah. So that's if you're more than welcome to sit into this meeting, although we probably will not be talking at any length about the ad hoc building committee, but if you want to stay, you're more than welcome to do that.
Okay, great. Thank you. Have a great day.
Okay. All right. Thanks, ma'am. Okay. Everybody else is good. So that's the public speak portion. Patrick, I know you just sort of went away but next item up is the Highland Valley report. Do we have anything to report at this point?
Nothing but the usual. So no, nothing that I can think of in our meetings. Our meetings are off by a couple of weeks. So I'm just trying to think of, the last meeting I had over there, what was new and exciting. And I don't think there really was much new and exciting that I could think of off the top of my head. So
they seem to be in somewhat of a holding pattern. Would that
No, I wouldn't say that. I mean, I think they're just kind of moving along with their day-to-day operations and things like that. So there's nothing that jumps out at me that I think should need to bring back, at least at this point.
Okay. All righty. Sounds good.
Okay.
Yep, that's good. Item 5, director's report. Cindy, inform update. Cindy, the floor is yours.
Okay, folks, let me just turn my camera on. Okay. Hi, everybody. So we're focusing today on the senior tax work-off program again. And the reason is to report back to you, and everyone please mute themselves if you're not speaking. So the reason to report back to you today is to tell you how we're doing on placing the people You did the lottery last time publicly for the openings for new people. Thank you very much. And let me just tell you how that worked and what we learned. So what we learned is that sometimes somebody so we said that people could do 2 years, and then they would go to the back of the line. And some people, what we realized we could do is we could suspend their second year for a future time if we had no placement that was suitable for them. And so I'm going to implement that. And we did need to do that for at least one person, because if somebody isn't suitable for any of the jobs available by the time we get to them, they may well be suitable for a job the following year. And I could call them first, and give them a chance at the job that's most suitable for them. A second thing we learned is that we need to change the policy agreement that you all saw a number of months ago for the very few people for whom we run the risk that they would work too many hours because their tax burden is really low compared to what they would earn in the credit. And so I can just report back on what that wording will sound like that I worked out with the assessor. Since property tax bills are not mailed until the end of December, we're asking people to understand that during the time the program runs from January to October, it ends October 15th, that they might work hours in excess of what they will be billed in property taxes, and they won't receive credit or payment for those excess hours. And they can choose to work fewer hours than what they, based on their history, might estimate to be the number of hours that they would need to work. And we could try to help them stop working before they work too many hours, but no one will know until December, including the assessor's office. So for example, last year, somebody worked over 100 hours, 100 is the max, and they only needed to work 84 point something hours. And so unfortunately, the rest of those hours were volunteered. So for the future, we'll put that in the policy so that people can sign off on that, because we want to help folks out to not donate their time if that's not their intention. Tom?
I thought the cap referenced a dollar amount, like $1,500 or something. So
Yeah.
based on their hourly rate for whatever job they're in, are you saying they hit that $1,500 earlier than
No.
100 hours?
No, what I'm saying is that the property taxes they owed based on the value of their property, all of their exemptions that were applied by the time so say you have a veteran's exemption. Say you owe, I don't know, $4,000 in taxes, and you have your veteran's exemption and whatever else, and it all settles out to a point where now you only owe $1,500. You owe less than $1,500. Say you owe, by the time everything is figured, $800 in taxes, but you worked 100 hours and got 1,500 hours of credit by October 15th. The city can only apply a credit based on what you owe. Okay. Only the 800, not the 1,500. So we want people to go into this understanding that they may have worked an excess of hours, and that we can't predict based on the past. Their amount could go up or down. And it applies to very few people. I mean, we're talking like maybe a very tiny house or a trailer. Yeah,
I was going to say, I didn't realize people would get their taxes down that low, but good for them if they are that low.
And we're 800 is an exaggeration. It could be like 1,350, right. Or something like that. Yeah. So then, unless there's any other questions about that, I'll move on. Yep.
Yeah, Cindy, so I guess we're not at a point where people can bank excess hours. It's basically they can work however many hours they work, but they just get paid up until, to cover the assessed value of their property, correct?
Correct.
or the assessment corresponding to the value of the property. Yeah, okay.
Correct.
All right.
And to be on the safe side, if you have any questions, go to the assessor's office. They're the experts in this. Okay, so then also to report that we did, I don't know if you remember how we picked lottery numbers and we only had 6 openings for new people. So by the time all was said and done, we actually went to the numbers past the 6. So I was able to pull in one other new person. So we now have 7 new people doing their first year. And then we have 13 people who are returning. And the final thing I will say is that the library is incredible. They are taking on a large number of people. They've been really excited about bringing people on. And I think we're matching skill sets really well. So we'll see how that goes, just like we brought on the school last year. I may have no people left for the school beyond one person who had already signed up with them. So I think it's going very well and making a great contribution to the city.
Cool. Do we, any further comments or questions? Okay, thanks, Cindy.
You're welcome.
That's good. So then moving on to new business, item 6. Board membership. There we go. Do you want to take this one or?
Okay. So just to okay. I just closed the agenda. Could you recite the first item under new business for me?
Sure. New business, capital letter A, board membership. The first item is officers. We have a need for a vice chair.
Correct. So Stan had offered that somebody else could run for vice chair, which the primary responsibility is to chair the meeting in the actual chair's absence. If the actual chair was absent for so long that we needed to work on the agenda together, the agenda is worked on 1 to 2 weeks before the meeting, then the vice chair could help with that.
Okay. I guess we need to elect someone, but the first thing is, do we have any volunteers or anyone interested in serving as vice chair? I guess there might be something wrong with my connection because I'm not hearing anything.
I would not be opposed to it, Joe. This is Kathy.
Kathy. Oh, gosh.
I know I'm doing minutes, so.
Well, I mean, that could be your way out of minutes, but it's probably not, I would say it's probably not fair for you to be doing 2 different things. See if we can, I appreciate your gung-ho willingness, but let's see if we can, Cindy, did you have a question or comment?
Yeah, I just wanted to say, well, first of all, let's look. Is everybody here who's a current member? I think so. 1, 2, 6, 7. Yes. So everybody is here. So there's no excuse because we're not going to make a new member that takes one of the 2 empty slots, the vice chair right out of the starting gate. So somebody
They can take the minutes.
If somebody wants to switch with Kathy and take minutes, that would be great. So she could be vice chair. Kathy would be great at either thing.
Tom?
I personally think that filling Kathy's role is much tougher than any other role. So I'd be happy to volunteer to be nominated, if that's the right terminology, for vice chair.
Okay, Kathy, is that work for you or?
Yeah, that works for me. However, I've never been formally assigned to as the, I don't know if my term would, or name, title would be secretary, but so I'm still unofficial. So that may be something we need to add in the new business as well.
We'll take care of that in the next 5 seconds.
I agree. Okay, does this work for everyone? If Tom were to assume the vice chair role, and let me, before we go any farther, how long for a period does somebody sign up for? Not for life, but, I mean, is it till the end of June or something?
I believe it's to the end of the end of the fiscal year, June 30.
The end of the fiscal year. So, these new appointments would only be up until June 30th, and sometime in June we'll come back and revisit this in terms of, finding other folks to fill other roles.
Correct.
So, okay. So I guess what we have right now is, do we have any further discussion about this?
No, just a thank you to both Tom and to Kathy. Really appreciate it.
You're just thankful we didn't nominate you, Pat.
Well, I'm not going to lie.
Your time is all right, so we have Tom to serve in the vice chair capacity and Kathy to serve officially as the secretary. All those in favor of this arrangement signify by raising a hand.
Aye.
Aye.
Right.
My screen went somewhere.
Yeah, she's just sharing the bylaws to tell you how long the term is. It looks like.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not sure she realized she did that.
Hello, Cindy.
You're muted, Cindy. Okay. She knows she's doing it. She's good. It says it right there. The officers of the council should consist of a chair, vice chair, secretary, officers. Council should be elected annually in June.
June, yep.
Yeah.
So
That sounds pretty good.
There we go. Period of 1 year shall assume responsibility at the end of the meeting. Election of officers to fill vacancies may take place. Any regular or special meeting shall be for the unexpired term of the previous incumbent.
Yep.
The officer chair is vacant, shall be filled by vice chair, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera.
Okay. Tom, do you have your hand up?
yeah, Joe, I don't know if it's somewhere else on the agenda about the issue we faced regarding Chuck. But there's another.
I was going to mention that.
I actually picked, what's that?
I was going to mention the situation with Chuck coming up.
Okay. I just mentioned one other thing that came up when I went to actually look at the ordinance. And the way the ordinance reads since 1957 is that the chair of the board of the Council on Aging is determined by the mayor. Believe it or not, we've never, ever adhered to that. Never. So
That's bizarre.
somewhere along the line, if we decide to request change to the a change to the city ordinance, we would need to request a change of that. Cindy, I know what you're highlighting here, but this is our own internal bylaws. The city ordinances do override this, I believe. But believe it or not, it's still in there that the chair of the board is appointed by the mayor.
Could you, Tom, if you found that, email that to me, and if not, and you can't find it, I can get it from the city clerk.
I do have it. I can scan it and send it to you. That's because I was reviewing the other point that Joe's going to bring up shortly.
Okay, the chair recognizes Kathy.
Thanks, Joe. Did we come up with a final vote on the vice president and secretary?
By unanimous consent.
Okay.
Yes. Everybody raised their hand.
Okay.
And if they didn't, they should have. So we're fine.
Thank you.
All right. So going back, Tom, you're saying that that basically since 1957 we've been functioning as a renegade group, or?
Well, yeah, I mean, I've only been on this board for 32 years, and for 32 years, the chair was elected by the board. So somewhere along the line, it shifted gears, probably, with our change of government, who knows what happened when.
Our democracy is in jeopardy?
No, I don't think so. I don't think so. But I would, it came up because, let's go into your next item regarding membership.
Okay, let me just say that I'm going to insert a brief topic here, and I'd like to, and I know he's not here, but I would like to publicly thank Chuck Connor for serving on the Council on Aging board. Apparently, in the recent past, Chuck changed his residence from Easthampton to Westhampton, and while that didn't color his contributions, it put him afoul of apparently some ordinance that you have to be an Easthampton resident to serve on this committee. And Tom, if you'd like to add anything.
Yeah, it really bothered me that was the case. I never realized that. I mean, I was trying to get Gary Turco from Easthampton Savings Bank. Gary would be a great addition to this board, being a banker for all of his career, yada, yada, yada. But Gary lives in Amherst. And it was actually his application that I think brought that issue to light. And then, obviously, as you said, Chuck's moved to Westhampton. But anyway, in checking into it with Barbara, there are like 3 committees or boards in the entire city of Easthampton that have a residency requirement. And unfortunately, we are one of them. I mean, if Mike Superson wanted to join this board, he wouldn't be allowed to join it. So, I mean, talk about someone who's heavily involved in the community. So there is a process where we can ask for a change to that ordinance through the city council. And I would be more than happy to lead that charge if it pleases the board, to request a change to, instead of saying you must live in Easthampton, I would recommend that we request that it says you must live or work in Easthampton.
I think, yeah, personally,
I like that idea.
I like that idea. And we've run into this a couple of years ago with a lady who had a business in Easthampton, but because she lived in Northampton, she had to resign from the board. So I'm less concerned about where people live than the skill sets that they're bringing to the table. And we shouldn't be cutting off our nose, just to ensure that it's only Easthampton residents who can serve on this board. Yes, Louise, you're up.
What are the other 2 committees? There are 3 committees, and there was obviously some kind of thinking behind it. So what are the other 2 that require residents?
I'm trying to think, Louise. I looked at them real quick. I know one of them is the Veterans Council. And sorry, I forget. It might have had something to do with the plan. I'm not sure. Even the planning board did not have a residency requirement. So I can't remember what the third one is. I don't have the list in front of me, but obviously we wouldn't want somebody who, with all due respect, we wouldn't want someone who lives in Agawam and works in Westfield to out of the blue want to join this board. What's their motivation? What's the reason for doing that? But when I thought about a vice president of Easthampton Savings Bank or Mike Superson as examples, why wouldn't we want them on this board? And I think they have a vested interest by where they make their living.
Yeah, or Chuck for that matter. I mean,
or Chuck, thank you.
That's I get it. I mean, we've been picking presidents of this group for 32 years. Why can't we, blow off another role?
I guess we can't.
We are renegades. Is that what you said, Joe? I'm just kidding.
So are we asking for it to be removed or to be
Adjusted.
to either live or work. And I do have a problem with that. I think there's questions already about how representative this board is of people who use the services of the COA, and I think that's a bigger issue. But if we're going to say live or work, then you're cutting off everybody who did work but retires when they retire.
Well, the only thing I would suggest,
Just saying some complications like that.
the only thing I would suggest with that, Louise, sorry, Joe.
Go ahead.
The only thing I would suggest with that is that if you're retired and living in Southampton or Northampton, again, I'm not sure what your interest is in the Easthampton Council on Aging. If you're retired and living in Easthampton, then you qualify.
You're good.
Because
Yeah.
it's live or work.
Okay.
Matter of fact, I think that would open up a lot more opportunities for people to get on the count. I mean, we don't have people beating down the door right now, do we? To join. So if we open that up, I think it could actually open up the opportunity for more folks that be interested in joining the council.
Yeah, it'd be fresh blood, if you will, to keep the organization revitalized. So, Cindy, you had a question?
I think this might be in another part of this membership meeting item a little further down, but I was going to actually report on membership recruitment. So when you're ready, I can report on that.
Okay. Tom, what do you need? Just a sense of the board as far as whether you should go ahead and check this thing out?
Right. I didn't want to just unilaterally do this. Obviously, I wanted sort of affirmation from the board to do this. But what it requires is a city councilor to bring the ordinance change forward at a city ordinance subcommittee meeting. So I would send off an email to the chair of that group suggesting that the board would like to see this change. I think it's more power than just saying Tom Brown would like to see this change. So the COA board would like to see this change, and would you please bring this forward to the subcommittee, and then it would go to the full city council. And I would request those two changes. One is that the residency requirement be changed to live or work, and that the chair of the board is selected by the board. Just to clean that up.
I see okay. Any further discussion from anyone on these two items?
Yes. Do we technically have to put this on our agenda? Or, I mean, it's technically already on the agenda, but do we have to officially put it on our agenda to get it to make it a public notice that we're going to do this before we kind of move forward? Or I don't know, just popped in my head, like, do we put it on the next board meet or the next meeting as, part of our agenda? So that way, if anybody does want to chime in from do we need to do that process? I don't want to miss a step and then go to the city council and have them say, did you already go through the process in our
In other words, do we need public opinion, or is this a question we need to put in front of the public at large and say, what do you guys think of this? Or can we, because it seems to me this is an internal board matter, and I'm inclined to say that, while we may have to get public, I'd rather.
I mean, that'll happen in city council anyway.
I could just say, I'm sorry if we offend somebody by doing this, but all right, Louise.
Okay, I was going to say, given that they reviewed the entire ordinances a couple of years ago, and we didn't say anything then, and they didn't catch it then, I don't know. It's a bit odd. The point of it's like before we make a recommendation as a committee, we're supposed to put it on the agenda so that anybody who has an interest, I don't think very many people do, but if they do, they would be notified. I mean, it's basic open government, which I think we probably all believe in. I mean, some questions, and I will just say, issues have occurred to me. I had never even thought of it. I've not read all the ordinances.
Okay, hang on, Louise. Wait one. Tom, did you have a question on that?
I would agree with Louise if this was the final vote. If we were taking the final vote to make this law, so to speak, then we would have to put it on the agenda so that it's advertised so that John Q. Public could come on and say that they have a problem with it. But this is not the final vote. It's going to go to a publicly held subcommittee meeting and then a publicly held city council meeting. My gut tells me that covers us.
Okay, and if before we were to take a final vote, we'd have to go through some sort of legal review, would we not?
No.
Not that I'm
I
aware
don't
of,
think
Joe.
so. Not for this. No, I don't think so.
No, I simply sent an email that say, would you please consider changing the ordinances to this and this? If there's a legal hurdle to get over, that would be in the purview of the city council to send it to the city attorney to determine if there's some legal issue. The one thing Barbara did look into, and she wasn't 100% sure, she wanted to make sure that it wasn't a state requirement that we have a residency restriction there. So believe me, I don't want to get into legal issues. We'd let the city council do that.
Yeah, okay. All right, Stan, you're up.
You're muted, Stan.
You're muted, Stan.
Stan, you're muted.
We will be making a public announcement on this issue to anyone in Easthampton who wants to see it, because it will be part of our published minutes. And they can see it there.
Okay, good. Tom?
Yeah, agreed. I agree with that, Stan. I would also suggest that we not actually, I don't know that we actually have to take a vote on this. And that might be the threshold of when it's required to be on the minutes. If it's deliberation that ends up in a vote, I would simply say it's a recommendation of the board that a board member work with the city council to get this change going. Not an actual vote, but sort of an affirmation, a recommendation, whatever the right word is.
All right, does anyone have a compelling reason why we shouldn't proceed in that direction? Going once, going twice. All right, Tom.
Okay, I'm on it. I'll report back next month.
Make it so.
Yeah, thanks.
Okay, Cindy, you wanted to talk about vacancies and recruitment, so the floor is yours.
Okay, and I would just again urge anybody who's not currently speaking to mute themselves to avoid feedback. So we have 2 vacancies from Mylene and Chuck's departure. I am recruiting from among participants, volunteers, people who are active, who are 55 plus. So 2 people that I've recruited have applied. One of them had tried to apply for a previous opening, but she missed the boat on that. So she got on it this time. If you folks can think of anybody else that you would like to recruit or would like my help with recruiting, describing what the board does, providing materials, talking with them, interviewing them, inviting them to come to a meeting, we can do that. And then what I do is I give a heads up to the mayor's office that this is somebody who's interested. They'll be submitting their application just so they have a heads up. Another item in recruitment is that if somebody has applied and been rejected in the past, know that they must reapply fully. The mayor's office does not save their previous application and then put it back in the hopper.
Chair recognizes Tom. Tom, are you muted?
Thanks. I'm ecstatic that you have a couple of folks that are going to fill the seats, which is great. The one comment I would suggest about filling the board over time, we don't have to worry about it this time. We talked about people that avail themselves of the services and are volunteers or what have you. I recall when I was brought onto the board, they were actually looking for a youth participant to sort of offset. In fact, there might have been something in the bylaws that suggested that there be at least one board member who was under the age of 60. But sometimes that can give us another whole perspective if we had a 35-year-old person or 40-year-old person. And again, throughout my entire time here, although now that I've aged into the different category, there was only one person that filled that slot for that entire period of time. It was one young person who tended to be on the group, just to bring that perspective of whatever it was worth to the Council on Aging Board.
Hey, I'm under 60, Tom.
But not that far under, are you?
7 years.
There you go.
Good. That's good.
So to continue, before there's any more questions or comments, just to say, these are not people who have been chosen by the mayor yet to proceed through the appointment process. So I think now is a good time if somebody is interested to quickly get their application in. The applications are located when you go to the city website, easthamptonma.gov, under government, boards and committees. Then you can look for the application. There's an online application that you can fill out online, and then there's an application that you can print out to fill out by hand. And if anybody needs help with that, for example, one person is applying who has a visual impairment. We're happy to help. And that's the other thing. I highly recommend that person because they will add a really important aspect to this council, which is they have a very common impairment and are a leader in that area of disability services at the center.
Okay. Any further comments about the vacancies in recruiting? How about meeting absences? How handled?
I'm just going to, I'll be quietly sharing my screen. I'll go to that section of the bylaws.
Okay. Will that be coming up momentarily, or okay? Yeah.
Okay, so the issue here is the following. People have been really good about notifying the chair or me or both of us that they plan to be absent. There was a concern raised, what if we're warned that somebody is going to be absent and they happen to be absent 3 times in a row? Our bylaws say the absence of any member for 3 consecutive meetings during any calendar year may cause the council to request resignation of that member. Exceptions may be made for reasons of health or other extenuating circumstances to be determined by the council and as duly reported to the chair or director in advance of a meeting. There is the possibility that you could have a reason, let us know your reason, be absent 3 meetings in a row, and the board says, too bad. This happens too much and we really need somebody who's more active. Could you please look at your situation and see, can you handle the responsibility of being on the board. I just wanted to know, since I've only been here for just over 2 years, first of all, does everybody on the board understand this? How has it been implemented in the past? While we're looking at our bylaws, does this need to be clarified a little bit? What's people's pulse on how this is going? We're now out of the period of time where we were primarily meeting online, and so many people are coming in person. I see Thomas raise his hand.
Oh, sorry, I was going to wait for you to finish.
I think you stopped me in a good place.
Okay. Tom?
Yeah, I guess I think the word may is in there for a reason, Cindy. May cause the council to request resignation as opposed to will.
Or shall.
Or shall, yeah. I think it was a different group I was on that we had someone just go dark on us for like 4 or 5 months, just didn't even respond, just didn't hear anything. And eventually we reached out to them to request their resignation, and thankfully they did do that. I think it's worse when we hear nothing, when a person just goes dark on us. If we hear from a person that, they're sick or they're going to be in the hospital, or the reason for that communication is so that we can take into consideration those extenuating circumstances.
So then the question.
Let me just talk briefly about this. And Cindy, this happened, it was the year prior to your arrival here. And it was somebody who basically went dark. And, the funny thing is you could try to send it emails and they wouldn't respond to emails. And finally the one email they did respond to is, since we haven't heard from you, can we get your resignation? And the individual did submit the resignation, but it's, membership on this group isn't, first off, it's not a right. Nobody has a right to be a member of this group. We're all here at the pleasure of the mayor. And if people are going to treat it in such a way as they're not going to participate or whatever, not sure what the legal term is, where they sort of abandon the job, then I think we should be able to make that known and get somebody else on the board who would make the meetings and would be an active contributor. So I think that's basically what we're looking for. Anyone else want to chime in on this?
I mean, I'll just say the same thing. I like that it says may. It says may, so it doesn't mean that we have to. I mean, it gives us a little bit of wiggle room, if you will.
Sure.
And I thought part of me remembers, and it could have been at a different board, where it was more along the lines of an excused absence was at least you let us know. If you let us know that you're not going to be able to make it. And I think we're preaching kind of to the choir here. Generally speaking, everyone here at the moment has been pretty good about, if I can't make it, I'm, for whatever the reason, and I don't remember the last time it's been more than one meeting. That doesn't mean that it's not going to happen, because that's why we have these kind of rules in place.
Sure.
So that's just my thought. I don't know if you're thinking about changing it to say be a little more strict. I don't know if that was the point, or just kind of, I think, to get the point across that you got to be here when you're supposed to be here, unless you're on vacation or whatever the case may be. You're sick. I mean, these things happen. So
sure.
And I think the opportunity now, the hybrid thing, I think goes a long way. I mean, today I was going to make it. It didn't matter what, but it just was a better opportunity for me to stay home, or not stay home. I'm in between meetings actually at both offices. So this actually worked out really well, so that I can just jump in here versus having to be at 50 pace an hour at a certain time. So.
Okay. Chair recognizes Tom.
Yeah, I would just, echo that again. The word may is in there so that the board has some discretion, and as we're successful bringing on business people, like Pat, Chuck, and potentially bankers or what have you, their schedules are going to be a little bit more demanding than mine is or yours is, Joe. Not that we're not busy people, but there are last minute things that pop up with business people that require them to attend to that. It's their livelihood. So I totally understand, but they're gracious enough to let us know they can't make it for whatever reason. I'll just real quick anecdotally, we have a board member at another group that I'm on who is a very strong financial person, and we have 12 meetings a year, and that this person probably makes half of them. But there is no way we are going to kick that person off this group because they're so strong in the skill set they bring to that group. Is it more important that they're at the meeting or more important that what they contribute to the meeting when they are there? So that's kind of the way we looked at it. And that's why we have that discretion of we may or may not ask them to resign.
Yep. Okay, Stan?
Yeah, I'm not sure if it applies to us, but another board that I'm on falls under the regulation that they must have a quorum in order to vote on anything or even to discuss anything that applies to the board. I don't know if we're covered by that or whether we can have any number of members at a meeting and still be able to successfully vote. I see you shaking your head. Take it over.
Yes. Anyone want to address that? Louise, are you get extra points? if
Just
you
a comment that as I understand it, we're an advisory board. So
is the other board I'm on.
We are an advisory board. That's correct.
okay.
Tom?
Just to chime in on Stan's point, we are governed by open meeting law, and therefore we are required to have a quorum to even open our meeting.
Yeah.
I'm not sure, Stan, about a quorum to vote because it's my understanding.
If we can't open the meeting, we can't vote.
No, but you could have a quorum to open the meeting, and then a person could have to leave the meeting, and now you don't have a quorum. I believe that's okay. You've opened the meeting is an active meeting, and someone got sick during the meeting or someone had to leave on an emergency and you now don't have a quorum. I believe you can still continue with the meeting.
Okay. We have one more item on the new business, and it concerns committee work. And the question is, should we be making greater use of committees? Anyone care to speak on that? Patrick?
Can you repeat what you just said?
No, it's item 3, Roman numeral 6B,
Yep.
committee work. And
Yep.
I guess, should we be making greater use of committees? We've done it on a somewhat limited scale in the past. And the question is, should we be doing more of this now with the building committee? There may be more committees coming for that where we may get subsets of people working in a group. But I know, like, we had a subset of people who went off to the to do site visits for the senior centers in the area. So that was one case of where we used committees to do stuff. Should we be, it's like a motherhood and apple pie. Should we be making greater use of committees,
Yeah. Joe?
Cindy, yes.
Okay. So folks, you may remember that there was a training for Council on Aging boards and directors but most of you could not, actually none of you could attend. I went by myself. And this was at the Ludlow Senior Center last year. They're going to be doing some more trainings. They're going to be putting out a board manual, the Massachusetts Councils on Aging. And they're also interested in looking at what's the modern role of a Council on Aging, as Louise said, advisory board role. as opposed to a governance role. Some boards historically have had a governance role, and it would take, I don't know, an act of the legislature to change that. But our board is well settled in the role of being an advisory board. But that doesn't mean that you just are an observer. And I'm keeping an eye on the time. I know it's 12:54. We could choose to do a number of things. We could have individual board members work with the Council on Aging staff on certain projects, so the center can benefit from their expertise. We could have committees that, as Joe says, supplement or add to the work that the ad hoc building committee is doing. We could have activities going on in the city that are beyond what the staff can do. So for example, let's say that we finally had this senior picnic that we have talked about, or maybe it's a picnic in collaboration with other departments. There's no way the staff could pull that off on our own, even with the help of, say, the Friends of the Council on Aging. It might be the kind of thing where there's a board committee that works on operations and logistics of an event, or on the marketing of the event, or the conceptualization. It could be that somebody wants to start a committee to look at capital projects. So instead of me just working on the concept of, or capital items, what are the items in the building that need work? Do we want to kind of look at it and do some research? I mean, there's areas that the only one limitation to having committees is, in my opinion, I would need to pretty much staff most of them so that you would have the reality of, if you're coming up with ideas, what can the center do? And obviously I have limited time, so we'd have to, or maybe there's another staff person, like an outreach worker, who could be part of such a committee. But I brought this item to the council because I want to engage everyone beyond simply being part of the monthly meetings. If this was a more standard kind of nonprofit where really that was my charge as an executive director, and you had fiduciary and governance responsibility, that would be even more of a priority. But as the COA director who has a lot of like front of house work to do, I can't spend that much time developing board membership. So there has to be a balance.
Okay, Tom?
I think, Cindy, some of our limitations might be by the size of this group. I mean, when I served on a recent committee and there were 15 members, it was fairly easy to set up some subcommittees that met on a regular basis. I think you've been successful in putting together committees on demand. So when we needed the committee to go do the visits, you were able to put through a group of 4 or 5 people that were able to do that and bring it back to the full group. I'd be slightly concerned about setting up standing committees that had to meet or were expected to meet, because I look at several of us that are now on the building committee that they're going to meet. That's now twice a month. And my guess is those meetings are going to gear up even more. Pat's meeting twice a month with Highland Valley and us. Kathy's got a pile of work to do after the meetings and doing the minutes. I don't know. I'd like to see, I agree with you. When you need some help on an item, I think you shouldn't be reluctant to ask for a committee. Hey, could a committee help me on this? And when they're done kind of thing.
Like a task group.
There you go.
Yeah. Okay. Yes, Louise.
2 questions. First, talking about the training in Ludlow, was that remote? Or will it be remote in the future?
We can check with Mass Council on Aging on that, but that meeting was not remote because it was full of physical activities that people were doing together and that kind of thing. Before we end this agenda item, I did just want to tell you folks, I did find where the Council on Aging is, has its charge in Massachusetts general law. And I am going to just share my screen in the last minute so you all can see it, and it's in the public record, and then I'll send it to everybody so that you can see that there's nothing in it about COA membership or makeup or the structure of the COA.
So Cindy, nothing about residency.
No, let me share my screen right now real quick. And here it is.
Should be done in a couple of minutes. Good. The problems of the aging. I mean, isn't everybody aging?
So you can see it is very brief.
And again, Cindy, I've never heard anything about these annual reports. Is that something that comes from you?
Yeah, so the annual report is where the Executive Office of Elder Affairs, as a condition of receiving the formula grant funds, asks for an annual report. I've already submitted ours for this year, and it's estimated, because our database isn't perfect, statistics, and then some comments and statements, and then our financial numbers. And next time we meet, I'll put on the agenda sharing with you what I submitted to them. So that report, that's what that report is.
So Cindy, in here, sorry, Joe, in here, Cindy, I'm seeing though, all this is referencing is the Council on Aging itself, not the Council on Aging board.
Right. In some towns, there's no Council on Aging staff. So the Council on Aging board and Council on Aging as a physical service to the community is one and the same. So I think what this is referencing is that, so this Council on Aging board and the city government have established a staff with city funds and state funds. And so I, as the appointed director of that Council on Aging, am charged with submitting that report. But if you didn't have staff, then one of you or the board would have to submit the report, is how I understand it. And certainly they accept that report from me, and they're not coming to you and saying you need to submit the report, if that answers your question. I see it's 102.
Okay, so let me just try to wrap this up. You're going to send us copies of this, and for next time our next monthly meeting, you'd like us to what? Just come prepared to discuss further, or?
No, it was just that people had asked,
Okay.
do we have to go to the legislature to change the residency requirement? And I think that this obviously just says you may establish a Council on Aging. It doesn't say anything about a residency requirement, although there may be something else elsewhere, Tom.
Mm-hmm. Tom?
Cindy, I haven't gotten a chance to dig into it yet, but that form that I'm going to scan and send over to you does have a reference to some state requirements specifically for Council on Aging boards. So you'll see that reference as a footnote on one of the paragraphs. It describes some section of state law. You might be able to dig into that and find something. I'll try to dig into it later if I have a chance to, but I'll scan that over to you this afternoon.
Okay. Louise?
Yeah, just briefly, I'd like to ask Cindy to check for the new meetings in Ludlow, if they're remote. And I'd like to point out to everybody that this impacts accessibility in a lot of ways. And This is not the Commission on Disability. However, there is an overlap between really aging and physical ability to drive and get there and a lot of other things. So,
Okay.
basic.
At this point, I'm inclined to wrap it up. The chair would entertain a motion to adjourn. Do we have one? Stan? Do we have a second?
I'll second, Kathy.
Kathy seconds. All those in favor?
Aye, thank you.
Is that a cat? A cat friend. That's pretty good. Okay. All right, folks. Thanks very much. And just as a reminder, next week we will be having a meeting of the ad hoc building committee, same time as this meeting, and this group will meet again in February for our normal monthly meeting. Okay, thank you very much for your time and consideration, and have a great day.
This government meeting is brought to you by Eastworks and our local cable subscribers.